Good morning. Welcome to Books at the Bottom of the Stairs. My name's Lorene. Today it's a really gloomy day, and so I brought a bunch of plants out. The frog is back, and it's hard to find things to sort of spark this little corner up when the lights pour. Anyhow, what am I going to talk to you about today? It's a little bit different. I generally do not listen to audiobooks. I find that I can sit with a book for quite a long time, and I can sit with a movie or a TV show for quite a long time. But there's something about an audiobook. I can't just sit there. I have to be doing something. And so to have it with while I'm washing the dishes, or while I'm upstairs doing sort of upstairs chores, folding the laundry, that kind of thing, I wander away from the book, and I think, oh, well, I should quickly run that to the basement, or I should quickly vacuum this corner, and then before you know it, I've missed 5 or 10 minutes of whatever the story is, and then I think, well, I better go back and re-listen to that, press rewind, which is not possible on today's technology, and stand there, listen to the section that I've missed, realize that everything I wanted to do in this room is done, and pick up the computer, walk away to another different section, and I find myself walking around the house with the computer in my hands trying to listen to an audiobook. So I generally don't do it. However, in the last couple of weeks, for some reason, I came across Benedict Cumberbatch, whose voice I do love, reading, where is it now? Sorry. He was reading The Artists in Crime by Ngao Marsh, and this is an old cozy type murder mystery, and there was actually nothing very particularly good about the mystery itself. A lot of talking, and the expectation is that the mystery will be solved if people talk themselves into a corner. So perfect for bedtime reading, or listening in this case. And so that was the beginning of it's really nice to just have a pleasant voice in the background as I'm lying here. And I'm one of these people that just takes way too long to fall asleep. I'm not tense or angry or anything. It just takes a long time for me to fall asleep. And so the voice actually kind of helps me. And so that was what started, and I'm going to link these in the description box below. And for those of you who are quick on the draw, it takes me a little while to sort that out. So that's with AudioBooks Unlimited, and that particular site has a number of Benedict Cumberbatch things. Not all of them are readings, and there are a number of other books and a number of other readers. But what I also came across was a site called, these first three are all YouTube sites, called Thinking Out Loud. And in this case, it was the early works of Daphne du Maurier's short stories that had been published in magazines. And so there was 4 or 5 short stories, and the lead story was The Doll, which was pretty creepy. And there's another story about a Rebecca, not the Rebecca that we know, but quite a different Rebecca. So they're pretty interesting little short stories. They're about 10 or 15 minutes each, and the reader for that is quite pleasant as well. And this particular YouTube channel has a huge range of different things to listen to. Sometimes they're radio plays, sometimes they're interviews. It's got quite a huge range of stuff, so I don't know whether that works for you for audiobooks, where they're just a little more short and contained. And what I liked about this short story is basically I listened to the first one, and by the time I was finished doing my chores, I could just click it off and leave it till the next day. So turned out I like short stories as an audio thing. The other one that I have really started to enjoy is a YouTube called Cozy Series, and I don't know who makes this. It's the Lady Hardcastle Mystery Series, and this particular YouTube station has got the books numbers 1 to number 6 in this series, and they're your typical British cozy thing. I think they're fairly recently written, and I did not write down the name of the author. Bad me. I want to say Hennessy, but anyways, I'll either put it in the notes that you can see or down below. And this is about 7 hours long for each book, and it's Lady Hardcastle and her maidservant Flo, and they are, you know, hot on the trail of dead bodies, although they don't really want to be. The reader has got a very nice voice. This one is a little easier to listen to when I am doing chores in the kitchen, because the writing style has got one of those recaps. You know, if Lady Hardcastle discovered something off while Flo isn't around, she comes back, has a cup of tea, and they discuss it. So if I miss something, it's not a problem. The information is probably going to repeat. So yeah, it turned out to be better than I expected in terms of my problem with wandering. Now, what I have discovered through a different YouTube channel, which is Cruising the Cut with David John, I believe his name is. This is a narrowboat YouTube's niche. So, you know, in England, they've got all these canals, and in these canals, they've got these new and restored narrowboats, and they've got new narrowboats of different lengths. And people just chug up and down all these canals and go in and out locks and marinas and stop along the ways and have beers and picnics. And some people live aboard, and some people just do it as a day trip. So this particular person, Cruising the Cut, has been living aboard for a while. He's just sold the boat, but he continues to do interviews with things that are connected to these canals. And one of them is this wonderful, wonderful nighttime podcast. It's called Nighttime on Still Waters. It's taking place on the boat Erica, and he calls himself narrowcasting, which I thought was pretty funny. And it's created by Richard Good. It's about 30 minutes, and he's it's all old-time radio stuff in the olden days in England and a few other places, I guess. Certain restrictions in radio broadcasting were in place, and so people would hire or buy boats and go offshore outside the country's sea limits. And there's a movie about this with respect to the Beatles and all that kind of hard rock stuff. So it meant that on AM lines you could get broadcasts back into England. And so this is the kind of guerrilla radio tradition that Richard Good is following. Of course, being part of the internet, it's completely allowable, and his content is just wonderful. He's a sort of a prose poet in a way. He will describe the moon as it's, you know, going across the sky with its colors and its motion, and see some rabbits running along the banks of the narrow canal and how they're caught in the moonlight. And then he has certain neighbors that are both human and animal that he will report on their progress. So there is a swan that was a bit of an ugly duckling story, and now this swan is a young swan, but he's getting to the point where he has to move on to his own territory. And so you get to know Richard's and his wife Donna's life aboard, but not in the kind of we made bacon and eggs and this is our engine clean out kind of way. It's a much more poetical, relaxed, nature-based immersion, I'm going to say. And he also catches us up a little bit on what's happening in their lives in terms of the dog has passed away, or they're going to change their moorings, or just paint the boat, or and then he might include some historical information about life on the canals or the particular lock that they're at. So, but his voice, oh, just, you know, give me a baritone and I'm just pudding. He just reads these things so melodically, and they're so soothing, and I'm just so relaxed. Still takes me an hour to go to bed to fall asleep, but I'm just so relaxed. And so for books in hand as a read aloud, we are working our way through The Railway Children by Nesbit. It's that wonderful little Macmillan Classics library that I adore, with the little gold leaf And each page makes a little crinkle as you change it because they've never been opened before. Ribbon. And this you probably have come across in your lives as a movie. I don't know, I think it was done, well, it was done when I was a kid, so that would mean that it was probably done in the 70s or something like that. So, good story, not as funny as Just William by a long shot, but it's just a kind, gentle children's experience as they live beside a railway line, and it's very much in the tradition of, you know, children trying to be good. You know, there's definitely a moral tone to things. Mother is very high standards of what children's behavior is, and well, I guess if you just kind of, I don't know, you don't really look away. You don't look away from good children, but nowadays we know that's not quite the way it works, right? Maybe we're just too permissive with our children, and maybe if we could channel Mother, our children would maybe be more, you know, correct, but then they'd also be more boring. So that's my in-hand book. That's an audiobook because we read it aloud while Steve is cooking, and oh my goodness, I wonder if his cooking is so good because I'm reading aloud. Shall I take credit for that? I'm a flavor enhancer. Okay, the other two actual books I have read this week are The Republic of Birds. This is by Jessica Miller, and I think that I reviewed for you her other one, which was Elizabeth and Zenobia, which was a bit of a ghost gothic story. Very, very interesting. This is definitely for middle readers. What have we got here? We've got Olga and her sister Mira have had to travel with mom and dad to, it's sort of Serbia. It has definite Russian overtones, and there has been a war between the birds and the humans, and magic has been ousted from the kingdom of the Tsarina. And a firebird's egg has been found, given to the Tsarina. It was stolen by the Yagas, which is a Russian word for witches, and the birds and the Tsarina both want it. Now, the reason that the girls have to go follow their dad is that he has been shamed and has to go into, you know, the badlands, and Mira gets, it is Mira, I'm sure it's Mira. She gets, yes it is, she gets kidnapped by the birds. And Olga decides that what she needs to do is, with her magic that has to do with map reading, she is going to find her sister. So a lot of that's all in the front blurb. I haven't really spoiled anything for you. But of course, we've got an adventuress with a kinetic relationship with maps that is traveling. The first half of the book, we spend a lot of time in the before the being banned to Serbia. And then we spend a very rapid amount of time in the adventures trying to free Mira. I would have liked to have seen that reversed. I think that some of the adventures that she goes on could have been expanded quite a bit. Of course, she's going to bump into a Yaga. And I thought that part of the story could have gone on. There were a number of very nice little moments that I felt, yeah, I would have rather have seen the detail at that end of the book than at the beginning of the book. And it's not that we would lose anything particularly about the beginning of the book in terms of the world building. I think the world building could, you know, have continued. You know what I mean? It just, I would have proportioned it differently had I, you know, been Jessica Miller. And since I'm not, good for her for writing a good book. I really enjoyed it, and I'm quite serious. I think this is a very strong author, and I'm going to keep my eyes peeled for anything else that she writes, because that's 2 out of 2 that I've quite enjoyed. When was this done? 2021. Oh, so maybe it's a bit soon to expect another one. Come on, Jessica. All right, the other one I read is by Allison Mills. It's called The Ghost Collector. And what we have is Shelley, her mom, and her grandmother. And in this particular line of Cree women, they have the ability to see ghosts and to communicate with ghosts. And what the ghosts need is an opportunity to become untrapped, to be released into whatever happens next. None of the women in this Cree line of females has any idea what comes next. Their job simply is to help the ghosts to move on. Some ghosts just don't want to, and that's fine. I mean, they're not, it's just a very non-judgmental task that they are called to do. And Shelley's mom is just not into it. She can do it. She knows how to do it. She would rather leave it to her own mother, and she's not happy about Shelley learning about it. She's worried that Shelley is going to be very traumatized by the whole thing, but Shelley's like, yeah, rock. And so I can't really tell you too much more because I need to tell you the big spoiler in order for the rest of the story to make sense. But what I can say is that these 3 women need to go forward in their task of ghost releasing, ghost collecting, and then releasing. And it has a bad thing happen, a good thing happen, and there's a lot of personal growth, and there's a lot of content in here that is talking and addressing grief and loss and the inability to let go, whether you're the person who remains or you're the ghost that lingers. So it's a short book. It is for middle readers. I think there's nothing scary in this at all. I think it's quite a nicely done book. It's 186 pages, so it's a quick read. And now, it's by Anik Press as well. I want to say she's a Canadian writer. I'm pretty sure she is, but then, yeah, she grew up in Vancouver, but I think she's currently living in the States. It's a wonderful little story. She's not little, she's probably taller than me. She's a young lady, and this is a very successful book. I think it's great, especially if you're trying to come to terms with some deaths. There's pets that have died in this, so we also get to, consider what it's like to experience the death of a pet, or the pet, so many of it. We had a pet die about close to a year ago now, I guess, and I don't really feel her spirit the way we had another cat that was such a character, and I just felt that cat was still in the building. We'd see weird things happen, and we just think that was such an Aldo thing to do, and but there wouldn't be a cat around, so I wonder if he's still around. Anyways, the Cleo Bell was a much quieter cat. I don't think her spirit lingers at all. But the other 2 cats, they sure linger. They're alive, thankfully. Okay, I guess that's it for me. Yeah, I think that's it. So I hope all your reading dreams and adventures continue to come true, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.